So my name's Nancy Blair. I'm a coordinator, one of the newer ones, with the DEN, Diocesan Environmental Network, Diocese of Nova Scotia and PEI. Mask, I can take it off, yes. I know that a lot of you know about the DEN, but I'm hoping I can tell you some new things today. Now, when I first looked at the readings for today, I was kind of like, oh my goodness, they really hit me hard. There's a lot about the end times, and there's a lot about hope. So I realized that my talk today is really about the good and the bad. And I think you'll share with me, understand what I was saying. I've been listening, we've all been listening to Dr. Strang for how many years now? And he always does that. He tells us the bad, he tells us the good. And I often go on to hear him just because I feel so calm after him, because I'm getting both, and I like that. And I think that's what we're looking at today. For those of you who watched the news the last 2 weeks, and I know there's times we turn off the news because we need a break, but it's been the COP26, big meeting in Glasgow, all the world leaders there, many activists, women's groups, youth groups, environmental groups, looking at climate change and how we're going to save this world. So, lots of good news. Bad news is, well, they didn't reach the goals they wanted, and they're calling it imperfect agreement, but movement forward. They also say that they're going to meet 1 year from now in Egypt, and they'll be reviewing everything. So for those of us who are working on this gives us another year to really focus on what we need to do to save the world. I always say that, to save the world. So going back to the readings, but I'll be back to the DEN in a minute. There's a mix. Talk about the end times in Hebrews. It says, there'll be a time of anguish such as never occurred since the nations first came into existence. Sounds pretty rough. Remembering that Michael's there to work with us to save us. In the middle, in Psalms and Mark, Psalms and Hebrews, we're talking about, therefore my heart is glad and my soul rejoices. These are things, hopeful things. There is hope. Again in Hebrews, without wavering, for he who has promised is faithful. And I always say because we're Christian, we have to have hope. It kind of goes with the territory. But there is hope. And then we end up with Mark, where he talks about there will be earthquakes in various places, there will be famines. All right, we know that, that's happening. Not that this is the end times. But he says this is the beginning of birth times. And I think I've been doing environmental activism for a long time, probably 40, 50 years. And I have never seen a time, this is where I start to cry if I'm not careful, where so many people of different groups are coming together. And everyone is focused on one thing, climate change. And we're seeing how everything interconnects. Incredible work with the youth. Incredible work with every group. A lot of groups looking at racism, a lot of the whole holistic area. And I think this is the time that I've seen most where people are working together, and that's where the hope is. We saw a lot of working together in COVID. We need to go further, but we learned a lot in COVID. Not that we're out of it yet. So, and it's interesting when I'm listening to speakers. These are the non-environmental ones, the environmental groups, not the government ones. They're saying they feel terror and they feel hope. They feel fear and they feel optimism, stubborn optimism. And I think that's where I'm at. I've always liked that word stubborn. I've been called stubborn a lot, and I take it as a virtue. So where does the DEN fit in? It was created about 10 years ago. Bishop Ron Cutler was the forming bishop in that time, very strong supporter of the DEN. And Reverend Marian Lucas Jeffries, who some of you know, she was a coordinator since then. It was created as a network. We don't have a chairperson, we don't have a secretary, we don't do any fundraising. You can't give us money. But what we do is we work as a network, we come up with ideas, we're very flexible. We like it when somebody approaches us and says, have you thought about this? Do you want to do this? And then we say, well, great idea, how do we support you? Had a couple really good ideas come out of the first service. So anyone who's interested in climate work, the Den is there if you want to do that. There's many, many groups. I think we're seeing more and more in the social movements that good to work alone, better to work in a group. We don't have much time. So what does the Den do, for those of you who know? We have a Facebook page. It's really good. I like the Facebook page. Well, we get a lot of news, which we need, a lot of what's happening in the region, the Maritimes, the Atlantic, a lot of what's happening around the world, but I always like it because I like posting things that are hopeful. I always say I am hopeful. I work at it pretty much every day now because of climate change, but it is there. It's interesting because one of the things that came out, I can't remember if it was this morning I heard it, that India had sort of pulled out a little bit on reducing coal usage just because of what they're going on. But it's really interesting because over the last year, India Times, which is one of their big newsletters, they've had incredible innovative stuff about just amazing, all about solar, electric, combining them. It's incredible. I always look for the quirky things too, and one thing I really like that came out this week is that's coming out of Poland. You know the bouncy castles that kids like to jump in? So in Poland, they figured this out. If they have plastic columns in the side, fill them with algae. When the kids jump, it absorbs CO2. Then they take the algae and they make plastic out of it. So it was like, who would ever think of that? So I love these new ideas. And one other cute one I saw is, and we do this here in the city anyway, but in Barcelona, you had this great big picture of little kids on their bicycles going to school instead of biking on their bikes to go to school instead of taking a school bus. So it's wonderful to see these really hopeful things. We have a website, lots of information. Last summer, we did a few interviews with members to see who are we. Incredible mix of people. Seasons of Creation we also support, and I have to compliment all of you on your program on Seasons of Creation. It's just excellent. We did Thursday gatherings for 2 years. We had speakers every Thursday. It was a great way for us to get together and also to hear about speakers and to connect with community groups. We're slowing down on that after Christmas because there are so many people doing webinars. So we're trying to think, what are we going to do? We have to be flexible in these times. And I've got a funny feeling that we may see more people stepping forward with great projects. I just have that idea. We have a book club. I'm not involved with that because of time, but the book now they're working on is Julian of Norwich. We have Friday prayer. Prayer is really important to us, of course. That's been very successful. We regularly connect with churches, Anglican and other denominations or interfaith. The bishop is extremely supportive, and then we connect nationally and internationally. So there is a lot going on. Our Green Sense Symposium was going to start Wednesday, but we're postponing it. We didn't have quite enough registrations. Then we started to hear that people were going to sign up on the last day or after it started. So we're a little bit, oh dear, did we judge this early? But we'll be reformatting and reworking it because the information is great. A lot on greening churches, which I know you've done a lot here. Like Christchurch is ahead of many churches. Not that it's competition. Anyway, I know. Now I'm going to finish up. I do have a watch here, but I'm just going to mention me. I'm at St. Paul's Grand Parade. Right now, I'm working with the group to start a native plants garden. Very excited about this because my sister and I became David Suzuki Butterfly Rangers last year. Very keen on planting for butterflies and bees. She's more butterflies, I'm more bees. But I was amazed in just 1 year of planting what you could do. The other thing, as Father Kyle mentioned, is I am a psychotherapist. I work on, and I'm getting more into what we call climate counseling. And this is on climate anxiety and climate grief. I did a climate grief support group through the Den last winter. It was really powerful and quite wonderful. We do have people of all ages, although there's more work and studies showing that youth are really suffering this, are suffering climate anxiety, afraid for the future, understandably, because there's a lot of work to be done still. I'm a member of the Climate Psychology Alliance, which is the United States, Britain, a lot in the UK, Scotland, and Canada. And one message we want to get out is that if people are suffering this, it is a rational response to what's happening in the world. It does not mean there's anything wrong with you. It means we need to talk about it because people are having a hard time with it. So in the new year, I'm going to start doing some groups again, and you will hear about it. I'm very pleased this year because the fall, CBC's been really interested and has contacted me a number of times. Just did an interview last week on the Dose, which is the podcast, for a white coat, black art, on ecological anxiety and how a big meeting like the COP26 can help people with that. So you'll start to see a lot more in the media now, and that's really exciting. So in closing, I just want to mention, yes, there's a lot of really bad news out there, but there's a lot of really good news. And as we say, sometimes we have to work on hope and the good news. But there is a lot, and I personally am really going to take a few days off, 2 or 3, I think, but this year is going to be very, very important in terms of fighting climate change. And anyone who wants to do something, if you'd like to contact me or the Den or anyone, please do that, or think about it. There's something you would want to do. This is the year to do it. Thank you.